The topic of will and surrender is extremely important to consider for your spiritual path as well as your meditation practice. And so this is lecture 14 of the Kriya Yoga Meditation Beginner's Guide. And a lot of people have trouble with this concept of will and surrender. Again, it ties back to that idea that they're thinking that with their spirituality, that what's going to happen when it's all said and done, that all of a sudden it's almost going to be like they no longer have any volition of their own. They don't have to think about anything, they don't have to do anything, they don't have to logic, they don't have to reason, they don't have to try. Everything just happens, like the waves coming in off the sea. But, we know that the waves are actually caused by something. So the same is true here when we're thinking about the idea of will and surrender, that our will comes from somewhere, right? So just like the waves coming in from the sea, we think they're just happening naturally. Nothing's really occurring there. It's just something that happens. But whether it be sunshine or gravity or wind, those waves they start somewhere. So part of the issue is learning to accept yourself as an individual aspect of this greater holistic consciousness. All right, an individualized aspect of this greater holistic consciousness. And right now, all you are aware of is this little sense of I. All you're aware of is the environment around you, the things you feel like you have to do, your obligations, and so on. But what most people fail to realize is that that little you and those obligations you think you have and the things you want to accomplish, that there is an impulse from the greater aspect of divine consciousness that causes this. You're not aware of it. You can't, when you're in the beginning of your spiritual practice, you can't follow it back like a little thread and say, oh, look, this is where the program started. But it arises due to the innate intelligence of everything that's around us. And if we think about that, if we take the idea, the belief system of karma, which is useful for conversation, and we think about all the experiences that people have in the world, well, the way I treat someone else, we can say, is related to their karma. When someone experiences a certain situation, it's usually the result, if not of their own action, but of someone else's action. So what we see is that there is this great system of intelligence happening beyond the scope of our mind that directs our will, that directs our activity within the world, even if we don't know that, even if we have no idea or concept about it. So part of the process is also acting within the world. It's not just surrender. Now, there are certain things that you have to surrender to. Something happens that you can't help or prevent. Yes, surrender is the most important thing. But if right now, in this moment, an opportunity arises for you to make a decision, that is an opportunity to use your will. The will of this abstract infinite intelligence, this infinite divine consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And so what we see is that as life happens, there are certain things which we cannot help. That yes, surrender is important for. But there are moments, present moments typically, where there is an opportunity to go left or to go right. Is one better than the other? No, it's going to take you down a different path. But again, if we're seeing with an eye of equal vision here, all we're seeing is that, well, if I put my will in this direction, this may occur. If I put my will in this direction, this may occur. What are the consequences? Am I okay with these consequences? If so, move forward. Is God looking down on you, judging you about your decisions? No, because you are this divine consciousness. You are an individualized aspect of it. And that horrendous thing you're going to do, we don't know what those consequences are going to have down the road. That wonderful, beautiful, supportive thing that you want to do, we don't know. Maybe that's going to have a terrible consequence in itself. Maybe you decide you want to buy your brother-in-law a fancy new car. You think, I'm doing a good thing. Your brother-in-law takes that fancy new car out, wrecks it, and dies. Did you do a good thing? Maybe then your sister ends up inheriting $1 million from your brother-in-law. Is that a good thing? Then your sister decides to get addicted to drugs because of the $1 million or whatever. Is that a good thing? But then she's addicted to drugs, and then she decides to clean up her act and open up a center to rehabilitate drug users. Is that a good thing? Right? So this is the thing, is that you can follow these patterns and you can ask the why all you want. Is that good? Is that bad? But at the end of the day, our limited minds can't really know the why. We don't really know why our will directed us in this direction. But if we use that will, when we can, that is just as important as surrendering when we can't do anything about it at all. What's that called? The Serenity Prayer. I think they use that in Alcoholics Anonymous, possibly. And I remember reading it one time, and it says something like, God, give me the strength to make changes when I can, and the wisdom to know when I can't. It's something like that. I don't know. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. But I thought it was fascinating because it's a wonderful prayer. It's a wonderful idea and intention that encompasses this whole idea of will and surrender. That when you're in the world, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita, the yogi is entitled to action only, not to the fruits of their action. The yogi is entitled to action only, not to the fruits of their action, which means you're put in a situation. You have a certain intellect, you have a certain wisdom, you have a certain capacity. You're there for some reason. You don't really have any grand scope of why, and that's okay, you don't need it. But with that knowledge, with that intellect, with that capacity, you are given the opportunity to make a decision. So you use your will at that point in time, and then you give up the fruits of that decision. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You're not meant. If you want to be bound to your karma, sure, get all worried about it. But if you want to be the yogi, which is meant to be free, spiritually free, you do your best. You use your willpower when it's there, and then you surrender what comes after that. Whether it's successful or whether it's complete and utter miserable failure, that is not for you. Your purpose, your spiritual practice when it comes to using your will is to act in the way that the inspiration arises in that moment. You can't do any better than that anyway, right? Just like people who have emotional outbursts. Do you think they're doing that on purpose? Do you think that they're in control of themselves when they do that? When people are driven to commit a crime, maybe there are some very conscious individuals out there who just like committing crimes. That is extremely possible. But most of the time, people are driven to crime do it because they don't know any better. They just don't have the competency to act in a way that might be more supportive in the long run. But again, this is a philosophical debate that can go on forever. What about this? What about that? This person does this. Is that bad? Is that good? And at the end of the day, there is no why, there is no how. You have to drop that. You just have to do your best within the moment and let it be what happens. And trust that that is part of this greater plan that you, as a limited human mind, cannot conceive of. Now, the clearer you get, you do get glimpses into that plan. The better you get at acting in the moment and surrendering when it's appropriate, you do get glimpses of that plan. You can't tell anyone about it. You can't talk about it. It'll sound like inane metaphysical BS to anyone else. So this is not to give you power over others by some great divine insight. You have the insight for you. It's not necessarily for you to go and try to explain to others why this or that happened. Because if they don't have the capacity, they're not going to know it anyway. And if they do have the capacity, they will know it anyway. So you see how this gets a little silly metaphysically when we start talking that way. So your role is to use your willpower when it's appropriate. If you have the opportunity, the option to use your willpower, do so. Simple as that. And then whatever happens after that, let it go. Give it up. When you don't have any opportunities or you can't change or deal with something, then surrender is appropriate. So learning the capacity for surrender and contentment, as well as activity and will, is very important. In your meditation, If you're starting to nod off and fall asleep, you don't say, oh, I'm going to surrender and then just nod off into dreamland because that's what God wants. If you're listening to this video and you're starting to nod off, you know immediately at that point in time that you have the willpower to say, I need to wake myself up. So I'm going to go walk around the block, or I'm going to like open my eyes, or I'm going to breathe more deeply. I'm going to reinvigorate my practice. I'm going to use my willpower to go deeper into the process because obviously I have this insight, I have the opportunity, I'm going to do it. When it comes to trying too hard, I write about this in the book Kriya Yoga, Vichara. A lot of people want to force their Kriya practice. And if you feel exhausted, if you feel stressed out by doing it and you just can't do it anymore, there's literally nothing more you can do, then you have to surrender. You have to let it go and simply sit in the silence as best as possible. But it's learning that difference, learning that dance between, okay, I'm nodding off, I'm not alert and awake. How can I use my will to be re-engaged? And then surrender. Versus, I've been sitting here for hours, I've been trying really hard, I've been cranking through those pranayamas, I've been cranking through the mantras, and I just can't do it anymore. You don't want to force those kinds of things because you'll burn yourself out. So for more information on that, definitely see the chapter. I'll have to look it up. But see the book Kriya Yoga, Vichara, and the subheading, trying too hard, essentially. And that's, again, based on a lot of my experience with the process. So when it comes to your Kriya, your meditation, your life, you have to learn for you the balance between using your will and surrender. Doing what you can when you can, and letting go of attachment to the results. So it's not just giving up. You're still acting, you're just letting go of attachment to the results. You can never not act anyway, by the way. No matter what you do, you're still doing something, even if it's not doing anything. And then when things arise that you cannot control, that you have absolutely no idea what to do, it's just totally blank, that's the key for you to practice surrender. And this is a dance that goes throughout your entire day. It goes throughout your entire life. It's not something you learn in a seminar, on a 15-minute video. It's something that you have to think about and contemplate and actively engage in the present moment at all times. And eventually it becomes natural to where you realize, okay, I have the latitude to express this will at this point in time. Or, yeah, there's absolutely nothing I can do about this, so I'm just going to sit back. So that dance, again, it comes down to like sailing a ship or surfing or playing a musical instrument. You have to learn to ride the rhythm and not force anything, but realize when is it appropriate to take that lead with the band, when is it appropriate to hang back and just let the rest of the band take care of it, when is it appropriate to try to go after that wave, when is it appropriate to try or to just simply let the other person take it, when is it appropriate to try to sail through the storm, or to say, yeah, it's probably a good idea if I go into that cove and wait it out. The same will be true in business, in your art, and dealing with your family. And so every time you engage and think about spiritually speaking, treating it as spiritual practice, the use of your will and the use of surrender, it'll improve all areas of your life, as well as improve your capacity for meditation and self-realization. So this is as equally important as anything else as you study this Kriya Yoga Meditation Beginner's Guide.